Plenty of talk about this week, but there's one thing, obviously, that everybody's been talking about. Marty up north, thanks for joining me one more time. Here we are, and wow, holy cow.
What a week again, eh? What a week again.
Oh, man. I mean, we're laughing because David didn't get hurt, right? He actually, at the end of the day, he didn't get hurt. This is a police officer that took it upon himself to do something way beyond his policing duties. And well, I mean, it's now the attention of the world because this is how we treat journalists in Canada now.
Yeah, it's not way beyond, right? Like let's set the stage a little bit. It's not way beyond. So, you know, if a police officer had simply said something like they're allowed to protect politicians, I get that, right? I mean, I think this officer's an RCMP. He's a special security detail. That's that green little badge they got on their, you know. So if somebody gets too close, it's okay for them to interfere and say, hey, but you know, but then say something like, buddy, you're getting a little too close, something like that. But this one was ridiculous. I mean, you know, you play it over and over. I mean, are you going to play the clip? Do we?
Yeah, we're going to play the clip,
and
we're going to do the, you know, because there may be some people that haven't seen it, but this is the clip. This, of course, from Pierre Poilievre's tweet, as he's tweeting out, this is the state of the freedom of press.
Let's set a little bit of context here. This is not in Ottawa, right? So this is Chrystia Freeland, Deputy Prime Minister, obviously walking into some sort of meeting. Behind the camera here, we can't see them. You're going to see them soon. There's a whole bunch of police officers, but you know, this looks pretty innocent. And kudos to the journalist, to David, David obviously knows that Freeland was going to be here somehow, so he's on site, ready to ask her questions. He's the only one who's there, so that's the setup. She's walking into a meeting, and David wants to do what we call a scrum in Canada, like ask her a few questions,
which nobody else does anymore, it seems. But David Menzies. So let's have a look at this.
Ms. Freeland, how come the IRGC is not a terrorist group? Why is your government supporting Islamo-Nationalism? What? Excuse me. What are you doing?
You're under arrest for assault.
What, sir?
Why are you pushing me? You're under arrest for assault.
Who are you?
You're under arrest for assault.
What are you talking about? Police, you're under arrest for assault. How am I under arrest? You bumped into me.
You pushed into me.
I was just scrubbing. I got my credentials here, and you just bumped into me. So excuse
Police, you're under arrest.
What is your name and your badge? What is your name and your badge?
You've been told you're under arrest.
Why am I under arrest?
So it continues on. They struggle back and forth. There's some back and forth. Meanwhile, he's reporting the whole time with this mic. That cracked me up. The fact that he's under arrest and he's still like doing the mic back and forth pass with these cops.
Yeah, and I can see why some people think it might have been set up, but I mean, like, that's not a setup. Like,
no.
He's a journalist. He's calm. He's been there before. I'm kind of the same guy. Not a journalist, but my camera's always rolling when I'm hiking. You know, I get mad when I see people that have like a video of Bigfoot. Man, if I ever see Bigfoot, I'm not missing it. Like, my camera will roll. But
you'll be out there and catch it.
No, but imagine if this was you, right? Imagine if this, instead of the journalist, it's me or my kid. You know, who's like excited, wants to get close to Trudeau, and then somehow or other in the excitement bumps into a cop, and then the cop literally grabs him by the neck, almost pushes him against the wall and says, like, you're under arrest for assaulting an officer. Like, on wow. Like, you know, either the training of the officer sucks, or this officer has it in for Menzies, or you know, I think they have a history together. I mean, prior to maybe.
Well, I saw an interview on Viva Fry's channel, and David Menzies says he's never seen the guy before in his life. He doesn't know who he is.
Okay.
And he's been arrested several times, not by him apparently, but doing like a play-by-play. As you watch him, he's fully legally doing, you know, this is, you know, he's allowed to direct people, but this guy, he does the bodyguard thing, and he he does a pick. I mean, as in sports,
Yeah, it's a basketball pick for your basketball fans, or even in hockey, we'll do the same thing. It's a pick,
and that's fine. And there's no law against incidentally or accidentally bumping into somebody. So I mean, at that point, the bodyguard guy doing in his bodyguard capacity was doing the bodyguard thing and just trying to get them separated, if that's the thing, and that can be an excuse. But this is the point where it goes from, in my opinion, lawful to unlawful when he puts his hands on him, right? So Chrystia Freeland got away, and she's no longer being asked questions. But this guy proceeds to rough him up.
Yep.
And in my opinion, and there's a lot of people saying that, oh, this wasn't an arrest, it was a detention. He was being detained briefly or something like that. I mean, when he says 4 times in a row, clearly you're under arrest for assault. I mean, that's pretty clear. It's pretty clear, cut and dry. He was under arrest, and that's where it was.
And it's obvious to me that guy is, you said a bodyguard. I think he is sort of a, the people to protect the prime minister and the deputy minister, they are picked out of the RCMP. Obviously, this guy hasn't been a beat cop or a traffic cop for a long time because he's breaking a shit ton of rules. I mean, you like, if you're going to arrest me, you have to tell me why. And the moment David says, why am I under arrest? Like,
well, he says for assault.
Yeah.
Again, accidentally bumping into somebody who intentionally put himself in their way is not assault. That's by any stretch of the imagination.
No. So they did detain him. They did handcuff him. I mean, I'd be in a panic at that point. Like, I don't like being, detained like that. They took him to the police station. They never charged him with anything.
No, he didn't even go to the police station.
He didn't go to the police station, and that RCMP guy is not the one who arrested him and detained him. Officially, he turned him over to the York Regional Police, and they're the ones who detained him, not the RCMP. But the RCMP announced today that they're investigating. They got to investigate these things. I mean, the RCMP is losing, like, of all the the long tradition Canadian institutions, I can't think of one that's taken a bigger beating in the last decade than the RCMP. I mean, it was proud to be an RCMP years ago. I'm not proud of the RCMP. Not after the Nova Scotia shooting. Not after this kind of stuff. Not after, like, no, I'm not. This is wrong. So I'm glad that the RCMP said they're going to investigate, but I don't know how much they'll investigate. I mean, this guy.
Incidentally, they also investigated.
He's going to get a slap on the wrist.
Incidentally, they also investigated SNC-Lavalin. They investigated Chinese interference. They've investigated all kinds of things. So I've got all kinds of confidence in their investigation on this one. But this became a big political hot button issue because this is how they treat journalists in Canada now. This is really where we're at. They're at the point where they can push people around, and even to the point where some people on the internet are saying, well, he's not really a journalist.
Who cares?
Right?
He is a journalist. First of all, he is a journalist, but that's not an excuse to. It'd be even worse if he's not a journalist. It doesn't matter. Is this how the RCMP treats the private citizen? Like, if he's not a journalist, he's a private citizen who bumped into somebody. Like, come on.
That's it. And people who have their heads screwed on straight are saying, and there's a lot of them out there that don't like Rebel News and don't like David Menzies, for example, and they're all coming to the aid of, you can't treat journalists like this. This is not the way that we do things in a free, fair, and open society, and this needs to be rectified immediately because this is a precedent we can't have set and move forward with this kind of treatment.
Well, and the internet is forever. So what came out today? Dozens of tweets from years ago, right? I mean, Trudeau had a tweet where it's like, bragging about the sanctity of journalism and how they need to be protected. Chrystia Freeland had tweets like that. Everybody's had tweets like that over the years. Well, Freeland should say something. I don't know if she said anything. I don't think she came out and made any comment on this whole thing. It gives us a black eye because this is being shown around the world now. It's not just local. It's not even just on the internet. I mean, I was actually kind of shocked that the CBC reported on this. So maybe that's just a case of journalists coming to the defense of other journalists. what's the naive, optimistic Marty thinks that there's always still a few people who want to do the right thing. So I'm hoping that that's why the CBC talked about it.
And I thought Chrystia Freeland would have said something because in a previous life she was a journalist.
She was a journalist. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's a big heavy thing. But I think she's moved on since, and she's now the leader of, I don't know, some postmodern world that we don't recognize yet. And this is where their plans are.
And to the credit of David, he was doing, like we said at the intro, doing a scrum. He was there to ask questions, important questions, because he was asking why Iran is still not on the terrorist list, and she had just come back from a meeting where something was discussed. So it's very relevant. It's an extremely relevant question. And he's the only guy asking the question. Our journalists aren't asking a lot of, well, you know that, you and I know this. The mainstream journalists in this country are not asking, I mean, perfect segue. Have you seen any mainstream journalists talking about the farm protest in Europe right now?
No. I did an episode earlier this week talking about it, and it's just independent news that are talking about this whole thing.
I mean, I turned on the news a couple of days ago. We got a new television, so I wanted to try on the television. And I turned on the news on my television, and what's being talked about on the news, they're not talking about the farm protest. They're definitely not talking about the Bank of Canada and the fiasco going on over there. They're not talking about anything that's meaningful. The news today, the mainstream media news, is the Golden Globe Awards, whatever. Like it's garbage. But that's not what we're here for. So yeah. No, what are we talking about next?
Getting into the farmers in Germany. So the big story there, and I think the way they're trying to play it off is, I think they were trying to pull it off like the Freedom Convoy at one point. A lot of there's a small group of farmers going, and they're concerned about a subsidy that's going to be lifted. It turns out that, they're putting fuel taxes. They're putting taxes on fuels that weren't there before. Now, I'm not familiar with German, tax law, things like that. But if it's anything like Canada, we're talking about marked diesel, that agriculture, you don't pay taxes, road taxes and stuff like that on agricultural diesel. And now they're putting, they're saying that the subsidies are being lifted, or a tax break is being lifted. But why would they be paying these road taxes anyway on marked diesel, on agricultural diesel? These are new taxes that are being put on them. There's a bunch of other provisions that, similar to what's going on in what was happening in Holland, until they had an uprising and they changed things politically, brought in new parties, changed the political landscape of the country. And it was largely because of this. And those were inspired by the Canadian truckers. And this is very reminiscent of what happened in the trucker convoy, because of the media downplaying it, trying to say like, oh, it's not a big deal, don't really look at this. Meanwhile, tons of people are showing up in the tens of thousands, massive amounts of people. And it has like knock-on effects. Polish farmers are coming, Dutch farmers are coming. There's so many people coming in support of them.
Yeah, no, it's I can't help but see the parallels. It does look like the Freedom Convoy for a different cause. The one thing about the farmers, I think, might face the same consequences of the truckers, right? Hopefully they'll learn one thing from the truckers. The truckers, it did go a little bit too far, and they lost a little bit of sympathy from the public. So I think I hope the farmers are learn one lesson that way, right? Do what you got to do. They're doing it. Now, the one thing I don't know, again, because there's so little coverage of it, are government authorities in Germany and in Europe coming out to talk to the farmers? Because that would be a huge difference to what happened in Canada, right? At least that's why it went on so long in Canada, because our government wouldn't talk to the truckers. So I think that looking at what's gone on in Holland, I think the German government would be smart to go out and talk to the farmers really, really quickly. So
actually, this is what parallels the Freedom Convoy so much more, is that just like Trudeau's moment of this fringe minority came out and he said this piece about them. The vice chancellor and leader of the Green Party, or climate change minister, he came out and denounced them all as extremists and said that they're trying to overthrow democratically elected, all the same rhetoric, all the same stuff.
Yeah,
And he refused to talk to them. They met him at a ferry that he was going to, and he actually turned the police on them, and the police ended up pepper spraying a bunch of farmers over the ordeal. And this is where he got his moment to say that they were all extremists.
Okay, well, now that I know that, then I'm going to watch and it's going to be fun to watch, because I have a feeling that farmers in Germany are not going to get pushed around, and this is going to escalate. I mean, they have the upper hand as far as I can tell right now. Germany's a weird country, man. Germany's a weird country. Like, I mean, while this is going on, well, it's the woke ideology. It's similar to Canada. Like, the woke ideology of the government is backfiring, and the people are rising up. So who rises? Truckers, farmers, whatever, fishermen, like, blue collar workers. And so I think, boy, if I was the government of Germany, I'd be very careful. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, Germany's gone so far in their woke agenda. They're deindustrializing. Like, they shut down their nuclear industry. They shut down the coal. They jumped on solar and things like that. And then it's backfiring. I mean, the Germans are paying more for power than they've ever paid. And then their capacity to produce electricity is back down into, like, I don't know, 1980 levels. I mean, it's and if it gets cold like it is here in Germany this winter, it's going to be
And politically, they're making really bad moves as well. So apparently, they're trying to take off the ballot or make illegal the what they call the far right party, the party of Christine Anderson. I can't remember what their acronym for their party is, but they're the libertarians, essentially, the ones that get the government out of people's lives party, and they're trying to outlaw this.
Well, the party that won 4 months ago in the Netherlands is officially called the Freedom Party. So they have a Freedom Party that won the most seats. So workers of the world unite, like, and not in the way it used to be in the past. Like, as I'm talking, I literally feel like jumping on the plane and going to Germany. I need to go to Germany. This was making me think of something else, but I can't remember what I was going to think of.
Well, you're talking about going to other countries. Well, there's a lot of people trying to come to this country, and they're trying to find sneaky ways to get in the door. And not only that, they're getting a scam on the way in. And you were telling me about someone on Twitter who's been showcasing this, and so I've got a couple of tweets here. This is really important for people to understand. Like, while there's all these immigrants that are pouring into our country, a lot of them are coming here on pretext, like a false pretext that they're going to get some awesome deal when they get here, and they're sorely mistaken. And it's not the deal that they think they're going to get. So yeah, Canadians are getting hooped in this whole ordeal, but so are they. So are these people, these poor people that are packing up their entire livelihoods and coming over here. But here's Darshan Maharaja, I think is how you
Maharaja.
Maharaja. I'm terrible with pronunciations of names. If it's not Smith, I'm like, what? But one more example of the utter cesspool that international student work permit regime has become. People whose application for study permit was denied are openly asking if anyone can get them a LIMA or a LMIA work permit to come to Canada. Personally, already duped by an agent. So he's showing like examples, and he's got an entire thread. His entire page is full of this stuff, and it's just showing how many people are getting duped by these universities and then recruiters for these universities, just driving people in because it's this, what do they call it, a lucrative assets. These people, they're bringing their money in.
It's almost like what do you call the guys, are they mules, or what do you call coyotes, the guys who bring in Mexicans illegally across the border? So it's a more sophisticated scheme and maybe a little more white collar. But first of all, so I've been following Darshan for many years, and he's basically what I call a long form journalist. He writes nice articles, very nice, well written articles. I don't know him personally, but I'm going to guess that he's a first, maybe second generation Indian, a classic immigrant who went through the channels, came to this country, is calling this country home. And he strikes me now as somebody who's a little bit upset at people that are abusing the system, and he's exposing the system. So that's fantastic. And some of the, and this ties in nicely to the fact that we let in 1 million immigrants last year, and it's causing inflation, and they're not housed and so forth. And out of that number, they often say that a lot of them are foreign students. And what Darshan is exposing is some of the scams that are, that are being employed to come into the country. I mean, basically, he tweeted the other day that he tweeted a list of about 30 schools, and I'm going to call them sort of second-rate universities and colleges across the country. And he went and looked at their stats of how many, which school ranked first in the country for not completing their programs, and he listed these schools and these programs. And so what, his theory is that these schools are letting in immigrants quickly into bogus programs to get money from them, and they know that the students won't graduate, and the students have no intention of graduating. So basically, he listed the top 30 schools where students go less than a year. In other words, they're not finishing their programs. And then he gave specific.
It's a way to get a visa into the country, and then that's
you get your work. You get your visa into the country quickly, and you're allowed to work certain hours legally because you're a student. And what happens is they come here. I mean, we're brushing a lot of students. Sure, there's a lot of students who come here very legitimately to study. Canada's a great place. We've got great schools. But some of these are very nefarious. They come here, they pay their $5,000, they get a work visa or student visa, and then they go to one class, and then they disappear into society and pick up a job somewhere and get an apartment with 14 other people, and we never hear about them ever again. So, and it's just a problem. It's just another problem that people are turning a blind eye to. The schools know this is going on, and I guarantee you some of the ministers know that this is going on, but we're letting it happen. And these students, some of these students are being set up to fail, man. They're being set up to fail. Like, the schools are taking their $20,000 in tuition, and then there's no place for them to live, and it leads to other problems. You did a show, I think, right?
Yeah,
where
they're telling people just go to the food bank and get food, and use up these social programs that are here for Canadians. And not here for international students. They're supposed to be getting an education and then either moving on or staying in Canada to use that education and, you know what I mean, benefit society. Now, I have this clip here. This is from another show, another podcast where they were talking about specifically this.
Conestoga made $140 million on tuition in the last 16 months. You know how many international students they brought in? Conestoga's got like 2 campuses, right? They're like the size of this building, like they're not huge colleges. 30,000 they brought in 16 months. And so Conestoga is doing what any rational actor in that situation would do. Can we make $140 million if we open up a bunch of 1-year, dog shit programs for international students who want to come here and get permanent residence? If the answer is yes, I mean, I don't have to draw the flow chart for you. We do it. And if the answer is no, then we
There's one,
don't.
Nick and I were looking at the enrollment into their hairstyling program. It's a 12-month hairstyling or hairstylist program. And then half the people drop out because what was happening, we came to understand, is they get here, they start taking the class, but then they get a job somewhere. And if they get a job somewhere, that allows them to kind of stay on and get permanent resident status. And so they were kind of just using the course as this alternate immigration.
And that's really what it comes down to it.
Yeah, so that's alternate immigration, and then Trudeau's other term for the ones that come across the border is not illegal immigration. What did he call it?
Irregular. Irregular crossings. Yeah. Oh,
all right.
Man.
So we have irregular crossings, alternate immigration, and at first, the first time I've seen that clip, and I thought, when you say Conestoga, it kind of like sounds like it'd be in I don't know, New York or Vermont, but that's
in Ontario.
In Canada.
It's in Ontario,
Canada.
Yeah.
Like it's
so, but like you said, it's a dog shit. It's the size of the building that they're in. Like it's not a reputable university. I mean, it's I'm going to get a call from Conestoga tonight, but but it's this like tiny place, and they're racking in $140 million in what, a quarter? Like that's ridiculous.
And again, we're a country made of immigrants. You and I have spoken about this a million times. We're not against immigrants. We love immigrants. but there's processes and there's ways of doing it properly, and bring them in slowly, bring them in so they have time to acclimatize and get used to the system and become functional and contributing members of society. This is bullshit. This is dog shit. Yeah, this is dog shit.
It's irregular, Marty. It's irregular.
It's irregular.
So I mean, it's comical at this point where they just come up with fancy terms to say this stuff and make you feel like it's normal. Speaking of which, like, what is the Bank of Canada doing? What's this new term? Because I didn't even know what this was about. You tweeted about it today or yesterday. I just caught it today, and it's the repo, overnight repo. Can you explain what that even means?
It's I think underneath there I put the graph. Is in the next post? Is there the graph? No, not there. It is. There's a graph. Yeah. So the blue squiggly line is the interest rate, and right now the Bank of Canada interest rate is at 5%. And you can see how they, it was at whatever 3.5. This graph is about a year and a bit, right? Mm-hmm. But look at how in the last few months the squiggly line is the line is not straight at 5%. It's squiggly, because the market is basically saying that 5% is not high enough, and it should have been raised another time and another time. And what's happening is that banks, independent banks, and other lenders are offering money at higher than 5%, higher than the Bank of Canada. So, and what the Bank of Canada is doing when it sees this is it's doing overnight repurchases of some of its bonds. So it's borrowing, it's quickly buying some of this debt and then repaying it the next day. It's very complicated. I don't need to get into it, but they basically did it 6 times in the last few weeks at $5 billion a shot. So they'll put $5 billion in the market and then bring it back out, because they're trying to flatten this curve, make sure it stays at 5%, and trying to they're fighting something that's a losing battle at this point. And so this
they're trying to get the market rates to not go up. Like lenders they want their interest rates higher.
People are making money on their backs even more than they should. So the Bank of Canada is the prime lender that lends to other banks, but other banks are turning around and re-lending at an even higher rate, and so at too high of a rate. But the reason they're able to do this is because the market is absorbing it, and there's value, there's a reason for it. So to me, this goes away when the bank increases the interest rate to 5.5 or 5.2 or some other small number. But right now the bank is committed. I mean, they should have, you and I talked about this. They should have increased the interest rate back in April. They didn't. Absolutely. They kept it at 5%. They kept it at 5%. And this is what's happening. So, and this means that they're helping other banks to not lose money. And other banks are not going to lose money. And the last guy holding the bag is the Bank of Canada, who's going to be the biggest loser of all. And who owns the Bank of Canada? That's us. So we're going to be the biggest losers of all. So, and I mean, I can't wait to see the year-end results for the Bank of Canada. They'll come out like any other bank, right? It's the December, so give it January, February. By mid-February, we're going to see what happened for the last year. I'm predicting the Bank of Canada lost $10 billion. And that's just the crystallized losses. That's not the losses that are on the book that they're going to try and keep on their books forever and ever. It's ugly out there. And I mean, people are waking up. There's other places like we are seeing. There was an update. The government of Canada's debt servicing was $11 billion last quarter. They keep telling us it's only $40 billion a year. I'm sorry, man, but $11 billion is it's $40 billion in interest is what the government of Canada is paying. That's more than we pay on healthcare. So yeah, it's little, and I've talked about this before. Tell your viewers now. There's a link. Look up overnight repo whatever for the Bank of Canada. You won't find a story on it. You won't find anybody talking about it. So when nobody talks about something like this, that's
that's a bad sign.
Yeah, but what it's a bad sign. So I mean, I think next week we'll get the consumer price index, and then the next interest rate is not until January 24. So we got to wait about 2 more weeks. Actually, the day you come to Calgary, that night while you're in the air, no, that's the next day when we're going to go visit Tucker. We're going to get the new interest rates. We might have to sneak out of Tucker and go get the interest rates.
Go get the interest rates. Figure out what it is. Speaking of timely things, this is interesting. So I'll be coming to Calgary. We're going to be going to the Tucker Carlson event. Also, people in my region, there's going to be an event on Saturday. If people want to do a meet and greet, you can come up to. So in my whole region, it's called the Sea to Sky region. We're going to be having. We don't know when it's going to happen just yet, but we're going to be trying to pick who the conservative is going to be for the next election. That hasn't been decided yet, and I know a local guy who's running. His name is Marcus Wong, and he wants to be that guy. He's been on the show. He's a great guy. He's very libertarian sort of mindset oriented, liberty all the way, that kind of guy. So looking forward to that. So if people want to do a meet and greet, that's going to be happening in the township of Squamish downtown at the Ledge Cafe. Go check that out. It's on Saturday between 1 and 3. If you're part of that region, come on down. I'll be there. Marcus will be there, and we're going to be having chats with everybody. So come join that.
And you and I will probably, like, I haven't done anything yet, but we still have 2 weeks to plan. So what day is Tucker? The 24th, I think, or 25th, whatever it is.
24th, yeah. I'll be flying out on the 23rd, and it's going to be a mess. You get down there real quick.
Yeah, but we'll do a meet and greet. I mean, we're going to Tucker, and then Tucker's over by 2:00, and we're not going to rush away at 2:00. We'll organize something and invite people to come for a beer somewhere downtown Calgary and meet you, me, and a few others that'll be there. So looking forward to that. Hey, I want to talk about one last quick story. I think we're probably running out of time real quick, but speaking of truckers and convoys and stuff like that, the Tamara Lich and Chris Barber trial, right? So New Year resumed, the court resumed this week, and then court was adjourned again for probably an indefinite amount of time right now. So,
one day, they were only back 1 day, right?
1 day. So their trial for mischief was started on September 5th, was supposed to last 16 days. That's what the government before a trial, the lawyers meet, they exchange a little bit of strategy and then they go, okay, we're going to need 16 days. Then they go to the court clerk, and the clerk has to say we need 16 days and so forth. So now they've been in court, not just time elapsed, because September 5th was like literally 3 months ago. They spent 34 days in court, and the Crown hasn't done squat to build a case. Like it's garbage. And but the judge, I'm so shocked that this judge wouldn't just throw this out. It's not thrown out yet. So now they've recessed, and now the lawyers are going to meet at some date in the future to pick a date when they can resume. So this poor trial might not resume for another month or 2 or 3 because the courts are busy. The first mischief, from the time they were charged with mischief, it took almost 18 months before they went to court. And now, who knows how long this could be. This is
it's going to be 2 months next month, or 2 years next month.
Yeah. That's how the legal system is failing in this country. We don't have a legal system. We have a legal system. We don't have a justice system.
Yeah.
And it'd be if you have an opportunity, bring Chris or Tamara back. She can talk about more than she used to about this. But to me, again, this stinks of the government wanting this to elapse, to just go without them having to rule. I don't see why they're dragging this on. To me, a judge, any sane judge, any moral judge would have said, you're done, man. You have no case. Like 34 days for a mischief trial.
This is ridiculous. And I will have Chris and Tamara back on, but just not at the same time, because until his trial's over, they can't appear together, which is just, it's ridiculous. Yeah. So Tamara and Chris are both free to talk about a lot of different things, but they still have conditions. They still have conditions that they have to abide by until this whole court thing is done. It's ridiculous. I mean, people's freedoms, you're not going to get 2 years back of your life. And yeah, sure, whatever, Ottawa people who say, well, I got 2 weeks of honking. Whatever, and it's like, try 2 years of your life after 2 years of your life being limited by the federal government in the first place.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm a pretty good guy at controlling of controlling my emotions when it comes time to things that I don't control. And but 2 years is 2 years is 2 years. I mean, that's got to be stressful on anybody's life. Like, that's insane, man. That's not what our Constitution guarantees. In the Western societies, you are innocent until proven guilty, and if you're charged with an offense, then you have the right to a quick and expedient trial. And we're not even going to talk about the Coots 4. I mean, those guys haven't even had a bail hearing after 2 years. Like, that's Trudeau's Canada. And we had a great chat tonight, and it's a comedy of errors, and Trudeau's not even back. Imagine what it's going to be like when he's back.
He's still on vacation until his plane gets fixed. I mean, what do you even say to that? His plane got broke down in India. And the rumor mill in India, I mean, their mainstream media is talking about a little bit of a white powder issue. Dogs smelling something. Obviously, people jump to that conclusion again with this one.
Can we talk about one quick story about planes? Well, there was two interesting stories about plane, right? So the 737-9s are grounded now. Before that, it was the 737-8s. Now they grounded the 9 because one of them had a door fly open. And then today, an Air Canada flight from Toronto to Abu Dhabi didn't make it off the ground because some idiot opened the door and fell to the tarmac while the plane was taxiing. The gene pool in Canada is getting shallow, my friend.
Oh my. Okay, that's funny. But did he bite it?
No, he's okay. But then I was going to say something cruel. I'll say it anyways. Like, Justin, on your way back from Jamaica, if you want to open the door while the plane's in the air, knock yourself out.
Knock yourself out. We know they'll open.
Yeah, no love lost here for that poor guy.
No.
All right.
Anyway, so that's this week in Canada. Marty, where can people find you?
Yeah. Marty Up North on YouTube and Marty Up North on Twitter.
Do you have another video out recently? You said you were going to get one out?
Oh, I did one. Yeah, I published one Friday, I think. Yeah, Friday I published one. Just it was a quick overnight hike on December 21st. I wanted to hike out, stay out overnight. Did a solo. It's a winter solstice, so I like to brag about the fact that I stayed out in the bush in the middle of winter on the shortest day of the year.
So it's 20 minutes of black screen. Is that what the video is?
Yeah. No, it's I share my thoughts on year-end message and a few things. I mean, I'm running out of creative ideas when it comes to videos. Like I need to. I get asked that all the time. You should do a video on how you, your sleep system or how you set up your tent. I'm like, I've done it 10 times, man. I don't, my YouTube channel is probably gonna fade here in the next year or so. Unless I transition like you did and find something else, maybe Marty will start traveling around the world and do videos of his adventures. I don't know. Yeah,
I'm looking forward to it.
And then shout out to Darjan, right, folks? Like I don't know if you want to put a link for him too, but he's got some. He's a very well-spoken, well-written man. I think he's typical of a lot of immigrants who feel a little bit upset that other immigrants are cheating the system, and that's good. He's a man that, I've been on a podcast with him, and very, very, very smart man. Very smart man.
I can definitely associate with that because when I lived in Japan, if I saw other like Westerners just acting like fools, I just wanted to smack them. What are you doing, man? Like, you're making us all look bad. What are you doing? But that's the thing. That's the thing. Anyway, thanks for joining me, Marty, and we'll do this again
Cheers.
next week.
See you next week.